Hi, this is Scott Campbell at Solve3D. Welcome to video 4 on our series dealing with aerial object identification using our deep learning tool inside of Engine. In this video, we're going to show you how to use the model that you've previously trained to identify objects in your aerial imagery.
All right, Scott. So now we're going to run some detection or classification on a orthomosaic aerial image. So again, I've opened the engine viewer here. We're going to add our orthomosaic. I'll add it this way this time. And I'm going to go to the training data folder, select that same image. And again, I'm going to set the projection by editing here and selecting UTM-12 and update. So just to recap, before we did the training just on this little area section at the top here, but let's try to find all of the cars and handicap spots in the entire image. So to do that, we go to Tools, Aerial Classification again. Again, this window pops up and we're going to focus on this Run Classification button. So we click that. Let's just briefly talk about this classification score. So this is the level of confidence that for each result, the level of confidence that the algorithm has on that, whether that object, say, is a car or is a handicap spot. And, I recommend, especially for aerial images, I recommend starting with a value of probably maybe as high as 90%. Maybe you can even go higher depending on how well you've done your training. But this will reduce any of the false negatives that occur. The higher you get, it'll be more confident that this is a car or not. If you have a weird shaped, some vegetation or something that may look like a car, this might be a number you can tweak to hopefully remove that value or remove that object.
So just to recap, the classification score there, you got there 0.9, so that's like a 90%. So the higher that number, the more confident it is that it's what it has found is actually what you're looking for. But that means there's going to be a number of those objects that it didn't label. So the higher that number, the more what we would say is a false negative. So it's ignored something that it should have picked up, the higher that number is.
That's right.
And the further you go the other way, if you were to go down to, say, maybe 0.1, it's going to start thinking everything is what you're looking for. So it's very much a balancing act. Again, as within deep learning, the answer is it depends. You need to play with that number. So as you say, start with a certain score, see the results, and then you can adjust to see where your sweet spot is.
That's right. So after we define the classification score, we got to select the model that we just created. So click Select Model. We're going to go to that My Results folder and select this PTH file that was created. And then we simply hit Submit. So just like before, if you're using our model from scratch, or the very first time you're running this, you may get a download for some additional ML resources, but you just wait for those to finish. But in my case, it's just started right away. You can see the progress increasing here. It's pretty quick on a single tile. Again, you could have loaded, if you're doing this on your data later, you might have multiple tiles loaded. It will run the detection on all of the tiles that you have loaded into the viewer.
So that's a really good point. You don't have to stick with just identifying objects in a single tile. You can load in maybe 1,000 tiles if that's what you wanted to do.
For sure. So now it's finished. It's imported the results right back into the viewer here. So I have now 323 cars that it found, 9 handicap spots. So we'll just zoom in and look at a couple of these. You can see here's a car is kind of identified with that similar looking polygon like I have drawn earlier. Here's a handicap spot. So pretty good job at the results. You can see here, maybe this is a vehicle that it missed. And this is again to our point about the confidence. Maybe it wasn't very confident that this was a car, less than 90% confident, so it didn't include it. So that might be where you want to tweak some of those numbers. At this stage, you can always decide to do a couple things. Maybe you're happy with the results, you can export them and move on, which I'll show you in a second. Or what I recommend is, maybe fine tuning your model a little bit. And so that might involve going through, making some adjustments on some of these polygons, say right clicking on them and going, right clicking on them and just dragging out these vertices and maybe making them a little more defined, or whatever you would like to do for those. Additionally, maybe like for this one that it missed, I can always just hit add new label and start drawing a new label here and define that. So now that I've got those adjusted, I can always go run training again and maybe make a new model or add to my existing model. Or like I said, you can choose to export them. So to export your model, you can just, to export your results, you can just go to the Export Labels button here. And you have a few options. So I mentioned the 3DL file before. You can stick with that if you want to stick with the format that Engine supports for loading in those images, or those image labels. Or you can export them as a DXF or a shapefile. So in this case, just for fun, let's do a shapefile. Cars handicap. So there we go, saved instantly here. And we can look at in here in the My Results folder. Here's the cars and handicap shapefile.
And of course, these exports, like the shapefile or the DXF, can be used to import back into Engine at a later point, if that's what you want to do. You can import them into Encompass, or even a program like Autodesk's AutoCAD.
Yeah, or Esri, whatever you'd like there. Yep.
There are a few key points from this video. First, please take a look at our documentation to see what our recommendations are for your computing environment. The greater or more powerful your computer, of course, the faster this process will be. You should also try different settings for your classification score to see which works best for your model. Finally, remember that when you're finished, you can export your results in 3 different formats. If you're going to re-import your results back into Engine, we recommend you use the 3DL format. If you're going to export to other programs, then use the Shape or DXF format.